Homework out. You get homework out. Whoop, whoop. Let's do some homework now. You should be on page 304 and 305. Open up your books. Let's take a look. On 304, you should see this. A series of shapes, a little problem above it, and then the Explore It section just below. We'll do it together. Look at the shapes below. Put a check mark on all the shapes that appear to have at least one pair of parallel sides. Put a star on all the shapes that appear to have at least one pair of perpendicular sides. So we're looking for parallel and perpendicular. If you remember last week, you know that parallel lines go on forever but don't touch, and perpendicular lines come together and they make that perfect right angle. So here we go. Let's see here. We'll use green. This rectangle, I'm going to give it a check and a star, because it says check for check mark for the shape that has parallel, which it does, and a star for perpendicular, which it does. I don't see any perpendicular lines here. It's close, but not quite right angles. It needs to be pushed in more straight. But I do see some parallel lines on top and bottom. Over here, I see parallel and I see perpendicular. Right here, I don't see parallel or perpendicular, so I put nothing. Unless, wait, I'm looking at it sideways. Do you think that right there is a right angle? Sometimes they're so close. You know what, I'm going to put a star just in case that is a right angle. Just in case. And then this doesn't have any right angles, but it does have parallel lines. Use the math you already know to solve the problem. Which shapes have a pair of sides that are always the same distance apart? Always the same distance apart. Well, that's rectangles, and that's squares, and that's I suppose parallelograms. So I'm just going to put parallelograms, because parallelograms, they count for they count for squares, rectangles, triangles. I'm not triangles, sorry. Squares, rectangles, rhombuses, and other parallelograms too. Lines, line segments, and rays that are always the same distance apart and never cross are called those are parallel lines. They never cross. Parallel lines. That's the one thing you should know about parallel lines, is that they never ever cross. Each side of the shape above is what kind of straight row of points? Each side, that's a straight row, it's a line segment. Which shapes have a pair of sides that form a right angle? Let's see here. All the ones we starred. So A, C, and maybe D. I'm still not exactly sure if that thing that we circled is a right angle or not, but it really is close. It really could be. Lines, line segments, and rays that form a right angle when they meet are called, what are those lines called when they meet and make a right angle? They're called perpendicular lines. Explain how you could test your choices. We need to look for parallel lines that never cross. You need to look for parallel lines that never cross and perpendicular lines that come together to make a right angle. So that's what this page is all about. Knowing that parallel lines never cross and perpendicular lines come together to make a right angle. Look on page 305. There's something at the bottom there for you. It says, name 3 groups a shape could be in based on parallel and perpendicular sides. So what do they mean by groups? Well, in this chapter of math, they're going to ask you to put shapes into groups, to put them in little clubs or put them in sections that says how they match, how they are the same. So some shapes, here's one. Some shapes have parallel lines, like a rectangle or square or a parallelogram or rhombus. Some shapes have parallel lines. Some shapes, have perpendicular lines. Again, a square and a rectangle have that. Sometimes triangles have that too. So that's two different groups, parallel lines and perpendicular lines. But they said to name 3 groups. Look right there. It says name 3 groups a shape could be in. Well, the last group, the third group, is if they have both. Some shapes have both, can't see it, have both parallel and perpendicular lines. So you got to have a sharp eye in this chapter. Oh, look, it says right here, shapes A, C, and D all have right angles. So D is a triangle, so we were right when we said that right there, that might be a right angle because it looks pretty close to being perfect to me. Alright guys, that's all the homework we have for tonight. This is just starting to get you used to classifying shapes. Remember, some have parallel lines, some have perpendicular lines, some have right angles, some have other kinds of angles. You have to be like a math detective and be able to see all these things so you can classify the shapes correctly. I'll see you tomorrow night for some more homework. Have a good one. Bye.